I'm Gonzalo Shoobridge. I am a head of action consultancy at Great Place to Work. And basically what I do is I help organizations take their survey results to action. And that's something where organizations really struggle, because nowadays with the technology there is so much information around that organizations drown in information. So what we do is we analyze that information, we digest it for them, we really distill those areas that are important to take action on, those priority areas, and then we prepare a program that will help them improve those areas so that they can become best workplaces in the UK. Well-being is about creating an environment in the workplace that allows employees to flourish, to really make the most of their strengths and those important things that they bring to the workplace, like their talents. So well-being will allow them to grow professionally and personally within organizations. That's why well-being is so important. Well-being is more than just happiness. The thing is, normally when organizations talk about well-being, they are normally referring to happiness, and they start to concentrate on aspects that are important for well-being, but are just a very small part of the whole well-being spectrum. Sometimes I am discussing well-being with executive teams, and their well-being results are low, and immediately start talking, oh, we need to bring the yoga classes back and more fruit in the kitchen, and let's organize the barbecues once a month, and then pizza Fridays. So they start to concentrate on aspects that are important for well-being, in terms of improving camaraderie within the organization, but well-being is more than that. So when we talk about well-being here in Great Place to Work, we concentrate normally on 6 very important pillars of well-being. The first one is what we call the immediate work environment. The immediate work environment, we're talking about the conditions of work, the infrastructure, any potential risks that there might be in the workplace. So that's the first pillar of well-being, and organizations concentrate on that as well. The second one is what we call mental and physical health. And this is very important, and nowadays in the media there has been a lot of debate about it, especially mental health. The thing is, nowadays the business environment is becoming so competitive, and organizations are trying to cut down costs, that there is a lot of pressure on employees, and workload is also going up, and this generates a lot of stress that is really affecting mental health of employees. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect, that is physical health. I mean, we're talking about aspects that relate to the person itself, like medical conditions, because of all this workload that we have been discussing. Sometimes people don't have enough time to exercise, they don't have enough time to really eat properly. Maybe they spend too long in front of a computer, so that can have some impact on their eyesight, or also the fact that they need to sit at a desk 8 hours or more per day, that can have some impact on their lower back. So those are the aspects that we talk about, mental and physical health. That was the second aspect of well-being. There is a third aspect of well-being that is extremely important, that is financial security. Because if you are not sure about the fact that you are going to keep your job, and nowadays we have mortgages to pay and families to maintain, so this creates a big anxiety and uncertainty among employees. So communications need to be very clear, just to reassure people where they are standing in their jobs. And this sort of information empowers employees and will have less impact on their mental health and well-being. A fourth aspect actually of well-being are what we call interpersonal relationships. And this is, how employees interact with their peers and also with their line managers, because I mean, we are social beings, so these interactions have definitely can have a positive or a very negative impact on the well-being of employees. The fifth pillar of well-being is what we call work-life balance. You know, nowadays with all the technology, you know, the workplace and work never stops because we have mobile devices, computers at home, and so on. So people are 24/7 on the job. So there is a massive intrusion on people's lives. So it's important to balance and control how employees really relate and liaise with the organization on a daily basis. And the final pillar of well-being, that for me is one of the most important ones, is fulfillment at work. I mean, employees really need to have that sense of mission, sense of purpose, that what they are doing is having a positive impact on society, and they are contributing to the greater good of the communities where we operate. And I think that this feeling of employees doing something good is something that is also important for their own well-being and self-realization. That's actually an excellent question, and as you know, I discuss, different scenarios with companies, and this lately is coming into the discussion quite frequently lately, and I have been there myself. I mean, in the past, I used to work for an organization that had their headquarters in Australia, but the main offices were in the US, and I was sitting in London. So as you can imagine, we were having most of our conversations around midnight, just to be able to really balance the two time zones. So people in the UK in that respect are the ones who have to stay up really, really late at night, sometimes until 2 o'clock in the morning. So this is definitely an issue, and I have heard these sort of comments from employees very regularly, actually. So the first thing that organizations need to ask themselves, are these calls absolutely necessary? Because sometimes they have like regular calls every week, and it's just because in your calendar that you have to attend there, so everybody's awake late, and then you realize that there is not much to be discussed. So the first question is, are these calls absolutely necessary? Maybe rather than having 3 or 4 calls during the week, let's try to put them together into one single evening so that employees don't need to stay up several evenings throughout the week. Then another suggestion that was put by employees actually is that these calls should have a very clear agenda before the call takes place, for 2 reasons. Number one, people know what the call is going to be about, and they will immediately realize if the call is important or not. And number 2, that will allow people to get prepared for the call. Because sometimes, especially people in the UK that are in the middle, they take the effort to attend these calls, and then they realize that nobody is prepared in the call. So let's make sure that people are prepared for those calls and that the calls are relevant. It is important to offer recognition to all those employees that take the trouble to stay late at night to take these calls. Because sometimes organizations take this for granted, as if, employees should do that. No, I mean, employees work their contractual hours that need to be respected. And this effort is something that employers need to really recognize from employees. So now that I have discussed contractual hours, I think contractual hours need to be respected, because again, some employers assume that employees do their normal 8 hours, and then on top, then they have to do those super late night calls. So employees need to offer some sort of flexibility for employees. So employers, the flexibility they need to offer to employees is that if there are going to be late calls in the evening, then they have to allow employees to start their workday maybe after lunch, because these calls will last maybe until midnight. I think conference call technology is also very important, especially if people are making the effort to really get up late at night. They want to have a good conversation with their peers on the other side of the world, right? But what is happening sometimes is that organizations don't have really the right equipment, especially when we're talking about microphones, so that people joining these video calls can really understand what is happening in the room. Because what happens is that maybe you have just one individual in the UK that needs to attend a meeting of several people sitting, let's say, in Melbourne. And when there is a room of 10 people talking at the same time, for that person who is trying to follow that call remotely, it's very difficult unless that room has the right equipment, the right sound for people to be able to understand what's going on in that conversation and doesn't feel left out. And we're talking about well-being here. It's extremely stressful when you are supposed to be on a key meeting and you don't understand what's going on, and people assume that you're really understanding what's happening in that discussion. This comes also to the discussion about etiquette. And I mean, these are things that do not come especially for me. These are discussions that I have with employees that have been in this situation. And in terms of etiquette, I mean, sometimes they say, we really make the effort to be up late for these calls. And then we have people, let's say, from Australia, from the US, taking the calls from their mobile phones, and the communication is very poor. And we really cannot follow what's going on. Especially when we're talking about time zones. I mean, let's remember that maybe not everybody is an English native speaker. So people will, as part of the etiquette, make some efforts to speak slowly so that people can really understand the message. Because I mean, sometimes if the communication is bad, and on top of that, we have non-native speakers joining these international calls, where offices from all around the world take part, then the communication is really affected. And to finalize, I mean, nothing beats a good get-together. I think employers and organizations need to invest some money to get people together from time to time, because, okay, we have video calls, people can see each other through the screen, but it's very different to have an in-person meeting. So at least the next time you meet somebody or through a conference call or a video call, at least you have met that person face-to-face in the past, and that improves the dynamics of distant calls through different time zones. In Great Place to Work, we have launched a new product that is called Wellbeing Excellence Program, our Wellbeing Excellence Program. So this is very much a public accreditation, a public recognition of all those British companies that are doing a superb job in ensuring that the well-being standards in organizations are good. So this is not only good for retention of talent and attraction of talent by being recognized as a best place to work, but it's also a recognition for the good work that these organizations do. Actually, they become a kind of a role model for other organizations. So other organizations can learn from those institutions that are somehow ahead of the game. And it has been proven in numerous research that, when organizations take care of their employees are going to take care of the business. And this is all this element of employee engagement, where well-being is an important driver of employee engagement. And there are very strong linkages between employee engagement and organizational performance. But when we talk about this product of well-being excellence, I mean, we are not talking about a specific survey that is going to measure, a few elements of health and safety and happiness. No, we're taking a more holistic view of the well-being of employees in an organization. And there are those 6 pillars that I talked to you about, that are basically the immediate work environment, mental and physical health, financial security, interpersonal relationships, work-life balance, and more importantly, fulfillment at work. So we evaluate these 6 dimensions of well-being, and we tell organizations where they are lagging behind and what is the impact of that issue on their performance. Something that is important is that we will, as part of this well-being excellence program, we will be able to benchmark the results of those organizations participating in this program against other organizations in the UK. And when we do that, we're not only benchmarking employee opinions, but we are also benchmarking the internal processes, HR processes that are necessary to really create an environment where well-being is recognized and is part of the culture in the organization. So this initiative is more about creating a well-being culture within the organization. My first recommendation is, if you decide to enter the human resource management field, I mean, you really need to like interactions with people. Okay, you need to be a people person. You need to care about people. You need to care about their well-being, because basically this is what I call, they need to have a philosophy where employees come first. Okay, because what I have seen lately in organizations is that sometimes employees are treated like commodities, like they can be interchangeable. Okay, costs are falling here. Okay, let's get rid of some people. So the HR professional will somehow need to be there and balance the interests of organizations with the well-being of employees. So sometimes, I mean, HR professionals will need to fight their corner for employees when they feel that employees maybe are not being treated ethically or with respect. So I think the way I see things is the role of HR professionals in the promotion of well-being among employees is crucial. And there is a very strong connection with corporate social responsibility. Because when we talk about corporate social responsibility, people always think about the environment, the communities, and the world, and all those things. But corporate social responsibility starts within the company, with your own employees. So you start doing good to your own employees, treating them with respect, generating trust between employees and management. And once that has been achieved, then business alone will start to produce good results, because people feel respected. And when people feel respected, people have trust in leadership. And trust is something that drives employee engagement, that willingness to really put an extra effort into daily activities. So morality and respect is something that should precede any financial or business pressure, and future HR professionals should bear that in mind.